game is based on the manga Gashbell. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. I don't know the manga, the game's in Japanese, and there was no translation pledged, so I will only review the game based on what I see. The game is a typical fighting game with a tech mechanic. You choose two fighters in the beginning. There are actually two modes how to play the game. A single fighter mode where you select one of your two fighters and fight with him all rounds, and a two fighter mode where you can choose which fighter you want to have in each round. In the single fighter mode you can customize a character with 3 points that you can put into attack, defense or special moves. Fighters can do basic combo, different special moves, 2 assist, 1 per character and 1 based on the partner, and an ultimate move. There are a lot of fighters and stages to unlock. The game looks nice. It has a clean style with good looking sprites and nice backgrounds. The moves look mostly good and the ultimate attacks have a cool start animation. Sometimes the background can look a little bit too much like just a picture. Not in every background is a lot going on and the background characters don't react to what's happening. The fights that happen in the foreground can feel a bit out of place. The music feels like typical anime music, but it's not bad. Many fighters are little children, which maybe makes sense as a manga, but for characters in a fighting game it wouldn't be my first choice. But there's quite some variety in the fighters. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The game feels a bit slow and there's just one basic combination. The Game Boy Advance just has 2 face buttons and one is used for jumping, so there's just one other for the basic combination. The timing when you press the attack button can prolong the combination a bit, and you can sometimes change the combination with special attacks or assist, but it's still just one basic combination. Besides that, the fighting feels good and is fun. The customization before a fight is a fun idea. There are also little mini games in the arcade mode to bring a bit variety. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you're a fan of the manga and or speak Japanese. I think without the connection to the manga and the language, there are better alternatives on the Game Boy Advance. Gives the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. This game was made by Tiertex Design Studios and released 2003 exclusively in Europe. It is a Carrera racing game. In the game there are different modes to play. In the season mode you earn money and you can upgrade your cars and buy new ones. In time attack you can try to get the best time against the ghosts of your last rounds, and in create a track you can create a track. The game is an authentic Carrera experience, which means that the only controls you have is pressing A to speed up. If you have too much speed, you fly out of the curves. The presentation is bad. It starts with a boring intro and it just gets worse from there. The game itself is in a top-down view, which makes sense, but the cars and all the other assets are not looking very good. I don't know what happened to the 3, 2, 1 icons before the race starts. They look cheap, like they were made in paint. There's no background music during the racing at all. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is pressing A long enough to have good speed, but not too long to not fly out of the curves. This is literally a Mario Party minigame and not a good one. The boards fly out of the curves all the time, and even in the demo scene no one is patient enough to drive slowly. But the worst part is the create a track mode. While the mode is a great idea and makes sense in the whole Carrera setting, in the game it sucks so hard. You always put one piece of track after the other and you need to shift with L and R through different pieces that change based on the piece before. The problem is aligning the last piece of your track with the start to make the lap complete. I tried multiple times and never got the parts to align. There is no autocomplete or anything like that. I cannot imagine anyone enjoying making a track with that. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Not even for the greatest Carrera fan. I don't know who the audience for that game is. Fans of Carrera most likely have a Carrera track and should rather play with that. People that are no fans of Carrera will not like the game because it sucks. So no one should play that game. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. This game was developed by KCEJ and released 2002 exclusively in Japan. The game is a platform fighter and based on the manga Rave Master or The Groove Adventure Rave. This game does a lot of things different than other fighters. It is more like a platform fighter with more free movement. You can do normal attacks, a double jump and special attacks. The HP bars of the fighters, 2 or 4 fighters are in one fight, are linked to each other. If one player makes damage, his part of the HP bar grows and the part of the other player gets smaller. When a certain size of HP bar is reached, the player is flashing and can do a special move. After succeeding in a button mash minigame against the other players, that player wins. If you get hit in a match, you can lose your item. If you lose the item, you need to pick it up again, or you cannot do special moves and the game finishing move. The opponent cannot pick your item up, but can move it around without attacks. The game looks fine, but nothing special. There are 8 stages. They look good, but are a bit boring. In such a platform fighter, the stage is a big part of the game and should have been more interesting. The stages are also still images. Nothing happens in them during the fight. The intro and the menu are quite boring too, and the finishing cutscenes all look similar. While the game doesn't look bad, it also feels to impress in any way. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay has a lot of unique system, especially that you can lose your item to do the special moves and that the opponent can keep you away from it is very cool. I'm not a big fan of that button mashing minigame to finish the match, so that gets old pretty quickly. What I miss during the gameplay is everything beyond the basics. The stages don't do anything, there are no items, and the possibilities to combo are not big. You have one basic combo, and besides that the only combo starter I found was punching someone in the air and hit him once or twice in the air. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is doing nothing bad, it works and it has some nice ideas. Sadly the game is also not doing anything very good. I never had real fun, so I don't see any reason to play that game. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Sugar Rune, Heart ga Ippai, Moegi Gakuen on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by OpenSesame and released exclusively in Japan in the year 2005. It is based on the manga Sugar Rune. In the game you play as a witch that competes with another witch to get the most hearts from boys. I don't know, but that's the story. It is some kind of dating game in a way. It is hard for me to describe the game. You can even create your own boys to get the hearts from. The presentation of the game is boring. Most of the game are just plain background images, manga characters telling you something. There are not many animations and the ones that are there are not very good. The presentation just sucks. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand sucks even more. It's translated the game to understand what is going on, and I played the game longer than anyone ever should just to see if I missed something, but no. The gameplay is deciding between different rooms or streets, and there you will meet a boy and you can interact in the hope to make the boy like you more. After some time you can collect the heart of the boy, and from time to time you see a ranking who got more hearts, you or the other witch. Every half an hour there's some lazy minigame, like choosing which of the 2 boxes have more or less things in them. That's it. The only thing that is a little bit more than the absolute necessary is that you can create the boys yourself. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Really, please don't. I'm sure I'm already on some kind of watch list because I played it, but I didn't know it better. You do. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points.
Gelade, Tozasareshi
on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Jupiter and released 2005 exclusively in Japan. It is a JRPG based on the manga Elemental Gelade. In the game you go with your party of 5 from one place to the other over the world map and fight against everything that attacks you. The game uses a special fighting system. In every turn you have 5 faces of seemingly random of your party members on the bottom that you can use to attack. You can combine them to make different attacks or even fuse with each other. The world map of the game is a little bit lame, and the game is full of dialogue that just happens in front of still image. At least you can see the mouses move and have different emotions during the talking. In the fights the attack animations are not very interesting, and even combined the animations often just get played right after each other. When fusing there's a special anime-like cutscene. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very dialogue heavy. Between every action is so much text that you cannot skip. The fighting system is fine, but also not so interesting. I like the idea of the characters combining, but since the moves don't look so interesting, it is not so much fun. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I didn't see what makes the game stand out. If you know the anime and you can read Japanese, you might have more fun with it than I had. But get ready to read a lot. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder, also known in Japan as Jurassic Park 3 Kyo Ryu ni Ai ni Iko on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Konami and released in 2001. It is based on the Jurassic Park movie series. In the game you build a dinosaur park, get as many visitors as possible and try to find and create all 140 dinosaurs. To do that you can build different shops and restaurants, send exploring teams to find amber, and let your researchers create eggs out of the found DNA in the amber. The game looks fine. It has a cute and colorful cartoon style. The dinosaurs don't all have unique sprites, but get a sprite based on the type and size of the dinosaur. The visitors don't have many different sprites, but I think that's okay. Sadly, there are also not many different shops and restaurants or hotels, and the decoration items are also not many. So you cannot really create a unique park. The music is okay, but on repeat quickly annoying. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game has a lot of different things to do, like managing the park, getting the DNA and creating new dinosaurs. Sadly, all these things are very one-dimensional. They are not very interesting. Especially the lack of different shops, restaurants and decorations makes the park management uninteresting, because I don't have the feeling I can create something unique. The complete lack of a tutorial is also not helping the game. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, sadly not. I like park management games, but in this game I don't have the feeling I have creative freedom. The game did a lot, but nothing very good. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Disney Princess on the Game Boy Advance. The name is localized based on the native language. This game was developed by Art and released 2003 in North America and Europe. In this game you play as different Disney princesses and solve the issues they have, like taking care of dwarfs that got turned to stone in a magical forest while defending yourself with your singing voice, or cleaning the house. Every princess has multiple chapters, but the gameplay is very similar for everyone. It is in every case a 2D side-scroller in which you run around, avoid enemies and find objects. If you collect everything, you unlock a secret dancing level in which every princess collects gems while dancing in a dress. The game, a Game Boy Advance game by the way, is saved by a password system. The game actually doesn't look bad. I like the sprites of the princesses, and also the basic level designs look very cool. It mostly catches a mystical fairy tale look. The music is also great, and the different princesses have their own themes. The same cannot be said about the sound effects, which are always repeating and not sounding very good. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The problem is the gameplay. It is not a very interesting game. You just go through the levels, avoiding the same few enemies the level has and collecting the objects. They are not even puzzles or anything, you just need to find them. That game design feels lazy. That the game is saved by a password, and even such an unnecessary long one, is insulting the player. It is a Game Boy Advance game. They keep up the insulting with their teased secret level. It is just collecting falling gemstones on the same background of all the princesses. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is boring and repetitive. The Disney princesses are deserving better than that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. The Berenstain Bears and the Spooky Old Tree on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Program Ace and released 2005 exclusively in North America. The game is based on the book and TV series The Berenstain Bears. In the game you play the 3 bears, brother, sister and Fred. The game is a puzzle, and in every level you got to get all the bears to the exit of the level. Every bear can do different things, like brother can push boxes, sister can jump further and Fred can use a rope to climb. The game has a weird look to it. The levels are in a very cartoony 2D style, but the player and enemy sprites are in a more realistic 3D look. I don't think it is looking very good. Especially the last boss, a bear climbing up, is looking like the bear has the wrong angle. It just runs up the air. Also no idea why he's wild and we are not. The game music is fine. It gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is a puzzle game with the most obvious puzzles existing. Whenever you need to use a certain bear, there's a sign with the face of the bear. So no need to think much. I know that I'm not the target audience for the game, but still. Even kids can do more than that. Between every character changing, you need to wait until the bear waved. That can take quite long and be annoying. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. At least no long passwords, but still, for Game Boy Advance games that is weak. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, nobody should play that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Oriental Blue, no Tengai.
This game was developed by Hudson and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. In this review sees a fan-translated version of the game by ROM Hacking Ari. This game's on the first look a classical JRPG, but it does some interesting things. In the game you play as either a male or female character. That changes not just your sprite, but also the starting location. You get early in the game visions of a mysterious lady that you need to save. So let's go! But to where? Here's the first thing that makes the game special. After a little intro, the gates of the starting city open and you're left alone in the big world. You can go to many locations and find out what to do. The game doesn't use a classical quest system, but you've got a journal that records everything important that happened to you. Good luck. The presentation has two sides for me. On one side the game looks like a classical JRPG. I love the design of the towns and temples. The world has a Far Eastern look to it. Some cities look more Chinese, others more Japanese or Mongolian. The fights itself have that very simple look to them. Just the enemy sprites visible and not much fighting animations. It is a typical design for JRPG games, but I think it's a bit cheap. The enemy sprites look cool, but don't have any animations or anything like that. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what makes the game special. While there are the typical genre problems, like annoyingly high random encounter rates of enemies, the game gives you the freedom to explore it very early on, and that's cool. If you lose story-relevant fights, you don't have to retry, but you have to deal with the consequences, like a city getting overrun with monsters. There are also systems to upgrade your weapons with different orbs, and strategies to make the auto fight more to your liking. The game is very well made. I give the gameplay 4.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, but only for genre fans. You need to be a fan of RPGs and get a bit into the world building, running around and finding things to do. If you like that, then try the game out. I would call it a hidden gem on the Game Boy Advance. Thanks to ROM Hacking Ari for making that English translation, so that we can enjoy that great game too without being able to read Japanese. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. X-Bladez Inline Skater on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys, who we already know from Turrican on the Game Boy and Missile Command on the Game Boy Color, and released 2002 in North America and Europe. In this game, you race against other players on inline skates all over the world. The game is so unbelievably ugly, I would say it's the worst looking game that we reviewed yet. The maps look bad, the racers all look bad, the background look bad, the title screen looks hideous. The music is extremely annoying. I give the presentation 0 out of 5 points. On the same level as the presentation is the gameplay. The game is just an extremely bad version of Mario Kart. It is the same style of game, but in all aspects the worst version of that. From the 3 existing items, 2 are completely useless. Sometimes I just pause and I don't even know what hit me. There is no fun at all in that game. Because it is functioning, I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There's nothing redeeming about that game. Every aspect of it sucks. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Duel Masters Shadow of the Code on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Mystic Software and released in the PAL regions in 2004 and in North America in 2005. The game is based on the manga Duel Masters, and in the game you play the existing card game Duel Masters. The English version of the trading card game was produced by Wizards of the Coast, and the game is quite similar to Magic the Gathering. Back to the video game. This game is a sequel to 2 other Duel Master games on the Game Boy Advance, and the story takes place after them. Since Lucky Wheel decided that I played the third game first, it was hard to get into the story. Everyone loved me and wanted my autographs. That never happens. I liked the basic idea of the presentation, with the sprites of the monsters on the field, but I think the game is trying a bit too much. The most monster pictures and sprites look like a pixelated mess, and it was hard for me to recognize the abilities without going in the details. I also don't really like the presentation of the characters and dialogues. It might be close to the manga or anime, but I think it doesn't really look good. The same with the overworld map, which is just like a menu. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. I like Magic the Gathering, and having a different, slightly easier version of it for a maybe younger audience is cool. The problem I see with this game is mostly the presentation. Since it was hard for me to recognize what the cards can do, in the beginning you also get a lot of cards, which makes sense if you have played the first 2 games. But if you join like me in the third game and you get so many cards that you need to look in detail to understand the abilities, it gets annoying very fast. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. If you know the card game and cards already, it might be a good fit, but if not, it is not much fun looking through everything to try to understand it. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points.
Finish him! Scorpion wins. Fatality.
Mortal Kombat Deadly Lines on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Midway and released 2002 in North America and Europe. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have formed the Deadly Alliance and it is your job to stop them. It is a typical Mortal Kombat fighting game. There are 12 playable characters, some of them you need to unlock first, and 2 game modes, Arcade and Survival. In every fight, and sometimes in minigames, you earn coins, and with that you can unlock different things in the crypt, not knowing before what you will unlock. The game has a quite realistic look. I'm not too sure what to think of it. On one hand it looks not too bad on the GBA, and on the other hand it is looking a bit like a pixelated mess. I'm not sure. The background looked fine and rotate when you move. The music is okay, but Mortal Kombat has some great themes and sadly this game doesn't really use them. The narrator sounds cool. I guess the presentation is 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is really nice. The special moves are easy to do, mostly quarter cycles and a button, and even the fatalities are not difficult. I really like the controls. Just having 2 face buttons makes it a bit difficult for the Game Boy Advance, but they did the controls well, and as soon as I figured out how to do a special move, I could repeat it with no issues. The variety is fine for a fighting game. You have your arcade modes with different endings and the survival mode with a lot of unlockables. The game really feels like a Mortal Kombat game. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a good Mortal Kombat game on a handheld. Try it out, it's fun. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Majjokko Cream-chan no Gokko Series 2 Kisekae Angel on the Game Boy Advance. In this game, with the extremely long title, you play as the witch Cream-chan that needs to help someone by collecting the 7 most beautiful smiles. Yep, that is the story. You play a witch called Cream-chan that runs around to help people in the town to collect smiles. That game is a long fetch quest. You just run around aimlessly and talk to everybody. After a while you will get some objects and you can do some minigames to make some other objects to give that to someone else. That you repeat all the time. The game actually looks fine, but there's not much to see. I like the look of Cream-chan and of the city, but the dialogues are all quite boring to look at, and the minigames that I saw also didn't look very good. The music always starts new whenever you enter a building or a new screen. That happens often and is quite annoying. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Well, there's not much gameplay. Run around through the same city all the time, minigame, run around. That is it. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. If you have anything going on in your life, whatever it is, do that instead. If you have nothing going on, just do nothing. That is still better than playing this game. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Flushed Away on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ultra and released 2006 in the PAL regions and North America. The game uses different localized versions of the game title and is based on the DreamWorks movie Flushed Away. I've never seen the movie, so I'm missing the nostalgia here. The game is a beat 'em up game. You run as different rats through the levels and you beat up insects and other rats to get to the end of the level. From time to time comes a boss fight or a stage with a bit different mechanics. The game uses a password system to save. The game looks good. The sprites are well made, the backgrounds are nice, and there's good background music. The bosses have unique attacks and look funny too. There's a little cutscene before each stage. The game reminds me a bit of old arcade beat 'em up games. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The problem is the gameplay. The game is heavily relying on fighting as the main thing to do, but sadly the fighting system is not really interesting and never feels good. So the game is just not fun. It is a big problem if you're making a beat 'em up game, but the fighting doesn't feel good. Additionally, the game uses a password system on the Game Boy Advance. That's lazy. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game looks good and has fine music, but sadly it is just not fun, so I don't know why anyone should play it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Soccer Kid on the Game Boy Advance. This game was originally made for Amiga and released in 1993. I first thought the game is a FIFA-like game, but no. The box art already tells us it is a fast-paced platform adventure. The Game Boy Advance port that you see in this review was developed by Chrysalis Software and released 2006. Space Pirates took the World Cup trophy and immediately get hit by an asteroid after that. The fragments of the trophy are all over the world and it's your job to get them. For that you run through 5 levels that are in different countries like London, Russia and Japan. And for whatever reason, everyone and everything wants to kill you. You can hit them back with your football. The problem is if you shoot your ball away or jump, then you're without your ball and you need to get it back since it's your only weapon. The game looks fine. I think the sprites look good and the backgrounds are fine too. The foregrounds have always a lot of local objects depending on the region the level plays in. The music is fine too. One big problem of the presentation that is also affecting the gameplay is that you don't see much of the screen. Often enemies get in your view and it's already too late to dodge them. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is quite difficult. I needed long to get past the first stage. That you always have to take your ball with you is the point of the game, but it's also a bit annoying. I didn't have that much fun with the game. I think if you play the game more, it can feel quite good to have control over the ball, but I never really got to that point. Additionally, the game gets saved by a password system, which I don't like for Game Boy Advance games. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a well-made game and a nice concept, but I personally got annoyed by always taking the ball with me and by the hard difficulty. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Hello, Idol debut Kids Idol Isekai game on the Game Boy Advance. First of all, I want to explain again that I review every game and that the lucky wheel decides what game I review. So, with that being said, in this game you play a kid that is trying to be an idol. For that you go to idol school to learn dancing and makeup and how to be an idol. Yep. The game is mostly based on minigames and the different subjects that you learn. You unlock new outfits and so on. The game looks fine, but has a rather easy style. The faces look very cartoony and the minigames look not very special. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is boring. You wake up, you go to the classes and you do the minigame that after a few minutes already repeats himself. Maybe the game has more to offer later, but I'm not willing to play more of that. It gives the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think I would find it highly disturbing if anyone over the age of 14 plays that game longer than 30 minutes. So don't do that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Batman Vengeance on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and released 2001 and is based on the new Batman Adventure series. In the game you play Batman, Robin and Batgirl to defeat the Joker, Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. The game is a beat-em-up platformer. You have different gadgets like a batarang and a grappling hook. There are also levels where you drive the Batmobile or fly with the Batplane, I guess. The game is saved by a password system. In the first second with the 3D view, I thought this game would look great, but not really. The levels look okay at best and the assets in the level repeat often. The sprites look a bit weird too and there's no real pow behind your punches. They just happen, not even sure if you hit anything or not. The music is nothing special too. The cutscenes are just still images with 3D rendered characters. I guess from the PlayStation 2 version of the game. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is bad. The fighting system is boring, the bosses are uncreative and the level design sucks too. So many bottomless pits where you just die. Cool gadgets like the grappling hook can just be used in specific spots and are not very fun. And the different level types that exist, like driving some vehicles, are sadly also not fun. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. That already gives a first impression of what you will get. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. While being Batman sounds great, here it is not. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Disney's Treasure Planet on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Bizarre Creations and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. The game uses a localized title based on the native language of the country. It is based on Disney's Treasure Planet and is an action-adventure game in an isometric view. You go through different areas. In every area you need to collect a certain number of items that are at the end of the levels. Levels are a bit dungeon-like, where you need to find keys and solve puzzles to progress further. If you have done all the levels and collected all the things, you can go to the next area and start collecting there. From time to time you see a scene from the movie, or you have a minigame where you drive the solar surfer. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks fine. The level look nice, but the sprites of the human-like NPC and of the players can look a bit pixelated. They tried to recreate the look of the movie, but I'm not sure the Game Boy Advance was capable of that. At least not in the way they did it. The movie scenes look okay, but not more. The background music of the game is fine. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay, on the other hand, has some issues. It is always the same, 3 levels and then the next area. They tried a bit of a Zelda style, but didn't catch the good dungeon design that these games have, and Treasure Planet doesn't have an overworld, so it's just a dungeon-like levels. The levels are way too long and start getting annoying quickly. Additionally, you have the password system, the beacon of laziness. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is not fun, it is tedious. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Turok Evolution on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by RFX Interactive and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. You got transferred to the Lost Lands and they shoot everything that moves, mainly enemy soldiers and dinosaurs. You can play one out of 2 characters that have different start weapons, and then you run through the level and shoot. The game is a beat 'em up, or in that case more of a shoot 'em up. You run from left to right and try to reach the exit without dying. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks good, the sprites are really nice and the levels look cool. I like the colors they used. The cutscenes on the other hand are just images and not even very good ones. The game has some good background music. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is quite basic, running and shooting. From time to time the game changes to boss fights, which are changing the game to a gallery shooter. It feels good but does not reach the heights of a Contra. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. Why? I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a fine shoot 'em up. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Donkey Kong Country 2, or in Japan known as Super Donkey Kong 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Rare and released 2004. It is a port of the SNES version of the game that released 1995. It is an action jump and run game in which you play Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie Kong in an attempt to save Donkey Kong, who got captured by King K. Rool. Not only do you play Diddy and Dixie Kong, which play a little bit different from each other, but also multiple enemies that you can ride on. Additionally, the game has some minigames. The graphic style of Donkey Kong Country is a very unique one. It has pre-rendered 3D images for the characters and backgrounds. I always need a moment to get used to that style, but after a little moment it looks very good. Outstanding is also the music. Donkey Kong Country has some great music tracks. The whole game is in a pirate theme and uses all cliches of the genre really well, while taking itself never serious, in a good way. I'm a big fan of the presentation and give it 5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fantastic too. The developers really knew what they were doing when they developed this game. The jumping, enemies and level designs all feel satisfying. Especially Dixie Kong, with her gliding ability, is a lot of fun. The levels also have some good variety and a perfect length to not get annoying. While they are difficult at times, it rarely feels unfair. I give the gameplay 5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a really good handheld port of the SNES version and feels just great. It is an amazing game and I give it overall 5 out of 5 points. Today we review Spirit and Spells, also known as Castleween in the PAL regions and Maho no Pumpkin in Japan, on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Magic Pockets and released 2003. It is Halloween and you get separated from your group and all the demons and skeletons try to kill you. It is an action jump and run in which you play a demon or a witch and at certain points you can switch between them. You can mainly run, jump and attack. The jumping and attacks are a bit different between the characters. The demon has a double jump while the witch can float. The game is saved by a password system. The presentation of the game is okay. The enemy and level designs are fine and the characters look okay too. The music is also average. Sadly, nothing is very outstandingly good and it is extremely average. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is not average. It is worse. The game doesn't feel good to play. The jumps are a bit weird, especially during platforms. You port a little bit onto them, even if it looks like you wouldn't make it. It is hard to describe. The attack feels like it has no impact and the fun is not there. Additionally, it is a Game Boy Advance game with a password system. That is a very good indicator of what you will get. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not very good. Or fun, so no. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Legendary Starfy, on Japan known as Densetsu no Starfy on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Tozasareshi and released 2002 in Japan. It is the first of a series of Starfy games. It is an action platformer, puzzler kind of game in which you play Starfy, a little yellow starfish. The game plays in an underwater setting and you go around in the levels and help some animals of the sea while you kill others. Sometimes you fight a boss and it goes to the next level. The levels are quite big, with multiple doors to different areas and can be sometimes a bit confusing to navigate. The game looks great. It has nice music and good sound effects, it is very colorful and just cute. The whole game felt a bit like Kirby to me, but in the best way possible. The animations of Starfy are beautiful and the style of the game is great. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay of the game is really good too. You swim, run and glide through the levels, find different NPCs and help them to advance in the levels. Like I said before, sometimes the levels are a bit confusing and there are multiple ways to go. The controls really feel good. In total, the game feels a bit too easy, besides finding the correct way. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a fun playthrough and worth the time. There's also an English patch for the game. There are 2 more Starfy games on the Game Boy Advance, and I'm curious and excited to review them too. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Sega Arcade Gallery in the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sega and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a collection of 4 older Sega arcade games. Afterburner, a rail shooter in airplanes, Space Harrier, a third-person rail shooter, Outrun, a driving game, and Super Hang-On, another driving game, but on motorcycles. The games all look okay but a bit pixelated. They ported the old games on the Game Boy Advance, but not in an impressive way. The music is great in all the games, but the visuals are not so good. It looks like they just changed the resolutions of the arcade versions, and I have the feeling the games could have looked better on the GBA if the style got adjusted a bit more for the system. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is... I think the gameplay is like intended. The games feel like arcade games from the late 80s or early 90s. I don't know how to judge that. I think for an arcade collection, that is how the gameplay should feel like. But on the other hand, these games are quite simple games, and for the JBA that is a bit low. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think these games are great for people with the nostalgia of the old arcade games. Without that nostalgia, the games feel presentation and gameplay wise not very special for the Game Boy Advance. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pinball Tycoon on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ignition Entertainment and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. From the title I first thought it would be a game where you build and manage a pinball hall, and was quite excited. But no, it is a very bad pinball game with 4 tables that all have a gold money theme. The game looks extremely shitty, and we talk about a Game Boy Advance game. The table backgrounds are just some pixelated mess and just an image. Nothing happens on the table besides some lights lighting up from time to time. The whole thing is so bad it makes me angry. The ball has no animations, and the worst thing is nothing that interacts with the ball has any impact. There are no animations for bouncers getting touched or anything like that. It is like a still image. Worse than games that released years before. The sound also sucks. The background music is okay. I give the presentation 0.5 out of 5 points. The problems with the presentation carry over to the gameplay. You feel nothing but disappointment when playing this game. No impact, and that in a pinball game. There is no fun, nothing. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I'm a big fan of pinball in real life and good digital pinball games, but this is a disgrace of pinball. I hope the people of Ignition Entertainment are ashamed of their work. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Agassi Tennis Generation on Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Acro Pacific and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. The game released in different versions on many consoles. It is, like the title suggests, a tennis game. You play in quick matches, arcade or championship mode in single and double tennis games against the computer or each other. The presentation of the game is not very good. The sprites for the characters look a bit weird. They are realistic and kind of look like pictures, but too pixelated. The animations are really stiff too, and the transitions between them is bad. Everything else besides the sprites look even worse. The stadium, referee and audience is literally just a background picture with no animations. The ball is most of the time just 5 pixels, without any animations. There's no background music during the matches and just a few repeating sound effects. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is bad too. No matter what mode you play, it's all the same. Tennis matches. Which would be fine if they would be good, but sadly they're not. The animations, and with that the complete feeling, is off. Sometimes you don't even touch the ball and it still counts as a hit, and sometimes the ball travels right through you. The game feels cheap. I give the game 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There are so many better tennis games. Try out Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color if you're looking for one. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Today we review Calcio Bit on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Parity Bit and released 2006 exclusively in Japan. It is a football manager game. You manage your club, take care of the training of your players, set the formation, and then watch as the NPC battle it out. The presentation of the game is okay. The game looks cute, and during the matches there are 22 little figures running around, which looks not bad. The menus, on the other hand, look not very good. Everything besides the matches themselves is very basic. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is a management game that doesn't take itself too serious. The training plan works with cards you get during the games, and the most management aspects are quite light-hearted and simplified. On the other hand, there's nothing wacky or funny happening during the matches or anything like that. So it is a simplified management game, but the matches are slow and a bit boring. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game doesn't find the right balance between serious and not. The most management aspects are too simple, and there's nothing to replace the complexity that is lost. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we reviewed The Incredibles on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Helix and released 2004 everywhere. The game is using a localized name in every region. It is a beat-em-up game starring The Incredibles. You play mostly Mr. Incredible, run through the levels and destroy a lot of enemies on the way. The game is saved by a password system. I really like the presentation of the game. The animations of the characters look great and have a sense of humor to them. The backgrounds, especially in the city, look very good. Sadly, the background later in the jungle is repeating itself a bit often. The story is told with pictures of the movie, which is a bit cheap. The music comes from the movie too and is very good. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The problem of the game is the gameplay. You only have one real character, Mr. Incredible. The other playable characters are more like mini-games, and Mr. Incredible doesn't have so interesting moves. The whole fighting system has a problem that it's not very interesting. It feels good for the first 2 minutes, but then it just feels like a drag. There's nothing interesting to do and the fights take forever because a lot of enemies spawn. After the fight you go to meters and another bunch of enemies spawn. The boss fights are also repeating quickly and are very boring. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, sadly not. In the first moment I thought the game would be good, but every minute it got harder and harder to play that game. It is not incredible. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Mina no Soft Series Mina no Mahjong, the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by MTO and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. It is a Mahjong game, not like Windows Solitaire Mahjong, but like the real Mahjong. You can play in a versus or in a tournament mode against the NPC. I'm not a huge fan of the presentation. The playable and enemy characters look fine and there's some okay background music, but the stones themselves look very pixelated. They went with a realistic look for them, but weren't able to present that in a good resolution, and the end result is a mess. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Gameplay wise there's not much to say. It is a Mahjong game with a few different modes that all don't change too much. The game itself is doing everything fine. There's not much positive or negative to say. It does its job, but nothing more. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I like Mahjong, but I don't really like the presentation of this one. Since there are so many Mahjong games on the Game Boy Advance, I'm sure we will find a better one. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review ChuChu Rocket on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sonic Team and released 2001 everywhere. The goal of the game is to bring as much mice as possible in the time limit to your own rocket. The mice run along the walls on the levels, and with arrows that you can place on the ground you can control their movements. The moment they step on an arrow they change their direction. You can not only control the mice in that way, but also your enemies, like the cats that you need to keep away from your mice. The presentation of the game is simple but cute. The mice and cats look fine, but besides that there's not much to see. The overall theme of the game is nice though. Very cool is that you can replace the mice with your own drawings and even give that drawing some animations. The background music is fine but not too special. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Judging the gameplay is a little hard for me, because the game has a very strong focus on multiplayer, with the ability to play with multiple person with only one cartridge. Sadly, I have no friends, so I can only judge the single player of the game. The single player is fine but not too special. You can play different challenges to get all the mice in the rockets in a certain time, or to get them all in the rocket with a limited amount of arrows. These challenges are fun, but it's clearly not the focus. I give the single player gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only multiplayer. I can imagine this game being a lot of fun in multiplayer, but in single player the puzzles and challenges will not keep you engaged for long. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today review Frogger Advance, The Great Quest on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by KCEA and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. This game is starring Frogger, but it's not a Frogger-like game, but a platformer. You're Frogger and you're searching in a medieval fantasy world for a princess to kiss you so that you can turn into a beautiful prince. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks okay-ish. Everything looks a bit pixelated. All the sprites look a bit like a Donkey Kong Country style. So like they used pre-rendered 3D images for the sprites, just in worse. The backgrounds and foreground are also looking average at best. I am not a huge fan of the presentation of the game. The cutscenes telling the story are just images with some text, but without any effort. The music is okay. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is the average platformer. You can jump and attack, and every few levels you get some upgrades like a double jump or a stronger attack. Nothing creative to be found here. The enemies are mostly just standing or walking around and are not really reacting to you. On the positive side, you can attack in multiple directions and the levels don't use bottomless pits if you fall down, but often have some alternative way or way back to the platform. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. But it is a very average platformer that, for no reason whatsoever, has Frogger as the main character. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Dinotopia, the Time Stone Pirates on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by RFX Interactive and released 2002 in North America and Europe. It is a platformer in which you need to help the dinosaurs against the evil pirates. The pirates stole the eggs of the T-Rex and you need to bring them back. But maybe that is just distraction for a way bigger heist. In every level you need to find some item and go to the end of the levels. The pirates will try to stop you by rubbing their big bellies on you. So evil. The game looks not bad. The sprites are nice and the backgrounds are good too. The levels have all different background tracks that repeat a bit too quickly but are not bad in total. I like the variety in enemies. Sometimes the game can look quite buggy when grabbing onto a ledge, since the game lets you grab even in the middle of a platform. Sadly, all the story is presented very poorly. From time to time a friend of you comes around with a dinosaur to explain the plot points in a boring dialogue. That is all the presentation for the story there is. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very basic. It is a platform. You have an attack to defeat the pirates and there is a climbing system, so that is both good, but besides that there's nothing special. The most levels feel very similar to each other, and the levels that are more like minigames are worse. The gameplay is basic, but it works. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is actually better than I expected from the title, but there's still no real reason to play it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today review No Puzzle Chailien on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Creatures Inc. and released exclusively in Japan in 2005. It is a puzzler game in which you always move around 4 tiles and solve different puzzles with that principle. The game has a unique and I think very cool style. Everything's colorful and a bit stupid. The characters look funny, the music is good, and there's even a start cutscene. The principle of the puzzle is visually good explained. I didn't need to translate anything to understand how the game's played. It is not the most complex or impressive graphics, but I like the consistent style of the game. It reminded me a bit of the Katamari series. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is lacking. The principle of the puzzles is always the same. There's just one kind of puzzle, shifting around the tiles. That is used to do different things, like making wave with a little figure while it walks, or cooking with getting food in black holes. Yeah, that's how I cook at home too. But the principle is getting old quickly, and the only thing you find with playing the game more is doing the same stuff, just faster. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Sadly, the nice presentation of the game is getting held back by the repetitive and a bit boring gameplay. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review The Hobbit, the prelude to the Lord of the Rings, or in Japan known as Hobbit no Bokuen, Lord of the Ring Hajimari no Monogatari on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sapphire and released 2003. It is an puzzler action RPG game that is following the story of Bilbo Baggins and the dwarves on their quest to get back the Erebor from the dragon's smoke. The style of the game reminds me a lot of Legend of Zelda. You play Bilbo Baggins in an isometric view and you solve puzzles and fight against evil monsters like wasps, bugs and big wasps. The presentation of the game is doing a lot of things right. It is a cozy, magical atmosphere that is highlighted by the music and the colorful sprites. While not really impressive, the presentation does set the right mood for the game. The sprites can, especially during movement, look a bit weird, but most of the time the game is looking fine. I like the map of Bilbo's journey that is even visible from the main menu. The presentation is doing its job, but not much more. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Who would have known that Bilbo's adventure is mainly pushing blocks to the conveniently marked spaces to make new ways to climb? Not long ago I read The Hobbit and I don't remember him writing about all that block pushing. The puzzles in the game are very repetitive, and while the game clearly took inspiration from the Legend of Zelda games, something that was there from Zelda 1 is missing: the open world. So you have to solve the puzzles and you always know what to do because you didn't miss an item or anything like that. There is no backtracking. That makes the puzzle solving so much easier, and with the puzzle designs of this game, quite boring. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a not very inspired Legend of Zelda clone that is retelling The Hobbit. I like The Hobbit, but this game is sadly boring. I'm sorry, Bilbo Baggins Bilbo Baggins the block pusher. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Mass Patrol, the Claptroid thread on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by GXB Interactive and released 2007 exclusively in North America. It is a mathematic and logic learning game disguised as a space shooter. You get different tasks visible in the top left corner and you need to shoot asteroids or enemy spaceships based on the right answer to the task. The presentation of the game is doing its job. I'm happy that it shows a theme, in this case spaceships, and stick with it. That is not always the case with such learning games. There's also some okay background music. At the same time, the sprites and levels in total all look a bit bad. It all looks like it's not fitting perfectly together, and things like the spaceship as a cursor to select the mission is a good idea, but the way they did it, it looks cheap. It gives the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is not very exciting. I'm not sure how old the target audience for the game is, because obviously the player needs to be able to read to understand what to do and to do the tasks. But some tasks are like, what is greater, 1 or 8? And I think the most children that are able to read don't need help with that. I think the balancing is a bit off here. The games are always the same, shoot the thing with the right answer on it. There's not much variation in that. The game works, but it is not interesting. Since I'm not the target audience, I want to be nice to the game. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think no one who watches the video here is part of the target audience. And even if you need help to figure out what is greater, 1 or 8, I cannot recommend it. I'm sure there are better learning games out there. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Cruis'n Velocity on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Graphics Date and released 2001 exclusively in North America. It is coming from an arcade racing series, and that is also the style of this racing game. You drive in typical arcade racing styles through Las Vegas, Holland, Ireland, Alaska and the Mars. You do that in a freestyle mode where you choose a race and drive it, or in a cup mode with multiple races in a row. The game is saved by a password system. The presentation of the style is, well, let's say ambitious. They went for a 3D style, and I would say they failed with that. The game does have a 3D-like look, but it's looking very bad. Everything is pixelated and feels just unpleasant to look at. The different places feel very same. One time you're racing Las Vegas and the other time you're on the Mars. That should feel different from each other, but no, not really. There's also no background music during the races, just engine sounds. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is way less ambitious than the presentation. It is a typical arcade-style racer. While they took less of a risk with that decision, they still didn't make the gameplay good. The game doesn't feel good to play. It is boring, and in such a racing game, the presentation is also a big part of the feeling of the gameplay, so the presentation drags down the gameplay rivet. Additionally, a password system is used. Why? I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is really not good. I admire that they tried to do it in such a 3D looking way, but someone mid-development should have realized that it is not working well. It gives the game overall 2 out of 5 points.